Welcome everybody to Drew's podcast. It's all about the mind. I got a famous person on today. He is a doctor. He's been a doctor for maybe 30, 40 years. A chiropractic first, and then what we're going to touch on today is to do with the mind. So I welcome you, Dr. Harmon.
Thank you. I'm always excited to talk about this subject and
Yes,
got
love
really
it.
passionate about it in the last 10 years of my career. So
Mhm.
yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about the mind, because I know you had practice or some kind of practice drop-in center when it comes to clear minds.
Yeah, it's called Clear Mind Idaho. I sold my practice last September, but our focus there was helping people who had brain dysregulation issues. And those things can lead to things like anxiety, depression, autism, Alzheimer's, um, seizures, tremors,
Right.
tics, all kinds of different things. And it's all according to the brain and how much, if you look at a very simple way of looking at brain dysregulation, now that I've broached that topic,
Yeah.
you have to imagine that each part of your brain, since it runs on electricity, optimally, you want to have the right amount of electricity when you're doing any given task.
Mm.
There shouldn't be too much activity when we're sitting at rest doing nothing, staring straight ahead. And that is what the situation is when we would do the QEEG or quantitative electroencephalogram. We want to know what is the brain doing at rest.
Right.
And it's well known how much electrical activity there should be in each part of the brain under those circumstances.
Hmm.
So if I could, there's this very simple way of looking at this. The brain map, or QEEG, is looking at where do we have too much and where do we have not enough in
Right.
my electrical balance. When I'm not engaged in doing any specific task that would require certain parts of the brain to fire up. So the person is just sitting, staring straight ahead, not moving, and it measures that picture of what's going on in your brain, and it's detectable on the scalp. It takes 90 million neurons firing at the same time to even be detectable on the scalp. So um, it's the numbers are high, but
Yeah.
the amount of electricity detectable is pretty low.
Hmm.
So when we find things or areas where there is excessive amount of activity or it's under firing, then we speak in probabilities. It's not diagnostic, but it's probability. We would say you have a high probability of having attention issues. You have a high probability of having word processing, anger, all kinds of different probabilities can occur because it's predictable according to someone's electrical activity in the brain.
Let me
So that's
ask you,
what we would do first.
let me ask you another question. We also have Kate on as well.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, if you have any questions, you may ask Dr. Harmon as well. Um, Overthinkers. How would someone stop from overthinking?
Well, when you say overthinking, are you talking about somebody's mind? They can't shut off this,
Yeah,
for
I'll
example,
give you an
negative
example, and
self-talk.
I always give a lot of people these example. Um, if you have a baby and the baby's 6 months old and you let that baby in a room and you leave that baby in a room by itself, then you go out. There's so many different dangers for that baby to have. And that's the same with the mind. If you don't control the mind, then it wants to go here, it's talking about this, it's thinking about this, it's just going crazy. So overthinkers, because a lot of people do suffer with overthinking, especially at night as well when they're trying to shut off, and that becomes a very big problem for them to sleep.
Yeah, and that's made much worse staring at screens
Yeah,
and
media.
activating those parts of the brain.
Hmm.
But before, I mean, in any discussion about what you just mentioned, we have to talk about what's called the default mode network.
Okay,
And if I could talk about that for a little bit, I think a lot of that other stuff will become clear.
right.
When we're from the time we're born and until whatever age you are now, your body keeps track of things. Your brain keeps track of things, I should say.
Yeah,
There are there are little, I call them little, they're filing cabinets. You
yeah,
know, I'm storing away this memory over here, but there's an interesting phenomenon that occurs where our brain wants to protect us from things that are dangerous or perceived as dangerous or very emotional. I should say, and very emotional. But any of those things that are extremely emotional seem that were perceived by you to be very important or they're dangerous, extremely emotional things that happen. And there's a part of the brain where this big file cabinet is. And what it will do when someone's not engaged in doing an activity, meaning I'm just at rest, I'm not doing anything, I'm not really thinking about much, but all of a sudden these centers in the brain fire up.
right,
And this is called the default mode network. And what it is, it's that several things. It's, you know, your narrative. Who are you? Where have you lived? What have I done? What is my personality? It's you, your sense of self, who I am, but it also goes back and looks for things to start ruminating about. And that's what you were talking about.
yes.
And it but it only engages when we're not doing a different thing. And this is why some people will paint or they'll bake or they'll do things or run, you know, get their foot going up and down really fast and they're doing other things to distract
Retail
from.
therapy, people do retail therapy just to get over things. Other people go to the gym, yeah, I get it, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, so this system wasn't even discovered until 2001.
Right,
So it's not really that long that we've known about it. But here's what happens. And here's what they discovered. They wanted to find out where what parts of the brain would light up when they asked them to do a certain task or think about certain things and see where the blood flow went because that would tell us what parts of the brain are involved in that. And so they had the people do things, and they gathered their data. And while they were doing that, in between the times when the person was asked to think something or do something, all of a sudden these other networks came on. And they said, "What the heck is this? We're not even having them do anything right now." So we know what it is, we know what parts of the brain are involved, but this is where negative self-talk comes from. Remember when your mom said you're not worth anything and you're not going to grow up to be anybody and you're my little rug rat and these are my little brats? These are,
trauma.
or that look on your mom's face when she called you a little brat. Oh, that seems really important. I better remember that. And now we have a situation where if something going on in your world right now even resembles that situation, now it fires up that system.
Hmm.
And it's to protect you, but people think they're a slave to that. It's not
Right.
true. You can actually change what's in your big file cabinet and not be basically ruled by the quiet, the really active mind that should be kind of quiet. And I'm afraid to stop doing stuff, so I just keep doing stuff. I keep working, cleaning the house, whatever it is. So I'm busy. They don't know that it's calming or shutting off that part of the brain.
Okay. So if someone had like a mental health problem and they they're believing that something is real, but it isn't real, how would they reverse that, which is the truth?
Well, that's not just a simple fix,
Mm,
but they get to that point when they have dysregulation in their brain.
hmm.
Sometimes they'll have um,
Like trauma.
visual hallucinations,
Yeah.
or they'll hear things. That's a brain disorder as well. And so getting the brain operating with the right amount of electrical activity so that things that are being processed are normal rather than over processing. The part of the brain that picks up vision is clear back here in the occipital area.
Hmm.
And if that's dysregulated, you can see things that don't exist,
Yeah.
or you
Exactly.
can hear things that don't exist too,
Yeah. Hmm.
that aren't
Hmm.
really happening.
But it's real to the person, but it's not real.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, just like our false beliefs.
That's
I'm
very
never
true.
going to amount to anything because my dad said so. That's part of that narrative that's in your sense of self in the default mode network.
I
And maybe,
also I also read about uh, the brain doesn't know right from wrong. So whatever you tell the brain, it's gonna believe whatever you tell it. So
well,
that's
yeah, you
all
look at just
connected.
the differences between some cultures. It's acceptable to do certain things.
Hmm.
And in our culture, wouldn't be any remotely okay to do some of those things, or vice versa.
Right.
So, yeah, little
Hmm.
kids. And this is why I tell parents, don't joke about things because these kids, our brains hear the words like, you know, this is my little rugrat. That's just one example. These are my little brats. I've heard parents say that.
Yeah.
Well, those things are stored and now it starts to be believed. So the opposite is, I mean, if you tell somebody good things long enough, they start to believe that they're good, or whatever it is, you
Yeah.
have the potential, you're going to be successful. All of these things, they get a lot of that at home. Their default mode network defaults to really good stuff. If they didn't
Yes.
get that and they got a lot of trauma and a lot of, sometimes parents think that it's cute to say a joke about their child,
He's so
kidding.
silly. He's so stupid. These kind
Yeah,
of words, negative words.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Or let's just start with one thing. Kids are born and their God-given rights are or gifts are curiosity, and I want to explore my world.
Yeah.
I'm going to go taste it. I'm going to feel it. I'm going to touch it. I'm going to smell it. I'm going to put it in my mouth, even if it's a dead cockroach. I'm going to put it in my mouth and see what it tastes like. That happened to my daughter, actually, when we lived in California. She was crawling around on the floor, and my wife found her with one of those big cockroaches in her mouth. But she was fine. But
Yeah.
here's what happens: parents have certain expectations that this child is not going to destroy those breakable things around my house. And so, what's the first word somebody learns?
Mm.
No,
Yeah.
don't touch. No,
Yes.
don't touch. And the little kids, the little infant toddler crawler is just trying to explore their world. And so we as parents destroy a child's curiosity because they don't want them to mess up their house. And
Mhm.
then sometimes they'll put them in, um, leave them in a car seat as a babysitter after they get home from somewhere. And the child is just sitting there. And so parents can either encourage curiosity, learning, or discourage it. And nobody teaches parents anything about that. And that's why on one of my episodes on my podcast, it's called Root Cause Holistic Health. It's called No, Don't Touch and Other Harmful Things We Tell Our Children.
Mm.
Because I've wanted to get this word out about letting those kids develop their brains normally with curiosity and my sense of adventure. I want to go out and explore this whole new world. So
Yeah.
that's a very important thing. And on that podcast, I tell parents how they can, instead of um, doing that, what they can do to increase their curiosity and the key, learn the difference between touching and grabbing. If you
Hmm.
teach a kid to go around the house just touching things, it's different than grabbing and destroying things. And that's what I did with my younger kids.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing because they
It's
didn't
been
learn
successful. Yeah.
no. They didn't
Mm.
learn no. They just learned I'm curious. I'm going to develop my brain this way.
Mm. That's very good. That's good teaching. Because as a young child or baby, it's the brain is like a computer, so it's gonna absorb new things. And one of the things that I want to talk about, sometimes people have childhood trauma, and then it lives with them, and then when they become an adult, they act it out, or they're going through some depressions, or some people could be very violent because of the trauma they saw in their household. you know is a very scary place for a child. So I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if they see that, then their default mode network is set with really horrific things and beliefs about themselves because of probably the way their parents treated them. If they treated other people,
Hmm.
if there's a lot of if there's violence in the home, those kids have a very small chance of, without lots of therapy and lots of counseling, leading a normal life. Unless they're
Yeah.
one, you'll see them every once in a while. They made a decision somehow when they were really, really young. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to have that in my house.
Hmm.
Kyrite has her hand up.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, sorry, if I may,
Hmm.
to add to this conversation regarding kids. What is so common nowadays that parents just give a child, a little toddler, a screen,
Oh, yes.
and it's so terrific to observe, because sometimes you understand that this screen is, the child is absorbed. It's just completely into that, and it's a really scary thing.
Yes, and I've seen when parents try to take the screen away from them, they throw the most horrific fit, screaming temper tantrum because that thing gives them this dopamine hit so regularly. They get so used to it. And research is coming out now saying that it causes permanent changes in their brains doing that. And here's something to really consider. When that infant is born, we have primitive reflexes that help us do things like eat. We don't know where food comes from, so something touches my cheek and then I turn and latch on. That is a reflex. It's not a choice that the infant makes.
Mm.
Like the grip strength, man, they have superhuman grip strength, and the reason for that is so they can grab onto things and then develop their core and stand up. Well, we have these different reflexes, and our the only thing we need to do at first is learn how to live in this world, like read facial expressions. If you look at all cultures, you'll see mothers instinctively go, "Oh, you're so sweet." They over exaggerate.
Mm.
That is innate. That's mothers teaching their children to read facial expressions because neurologically it's tied to certain parts of the brain.
Right.
Smiling.
Mm.
It's not that they say, "Oh, I feel good when I smile." It's I it's not connected until they
Yeah.
actually start doing these things. And it's, wow, I feel when I smile, I'm happy because I saw my parents and everybody else do that. So we smile, we frown. You can tell what mood somebody's in by their posture and by the looks on their faces. Well, this is from the right side of the brain
Right. Hmm.
to learn how to do that. So the right side of the brain, the kids are born with a very active right side of the brain, not so much the left side. What's the left side for? Analytical thinking, math, reading, other higher things where we have to process information really fast. The left side of the brain is supposed to be more active in the beta range, which is fast processing, where the
Right.
right side of the brain is supposed to be more dominant with alpha, which is a little bit slower, but it's for creativity, color. We see colors. We develop our large muscles. So when the child is born, they need to develop their big muscles, core strength. They need to learn how to do that on their own with gravity, with feet on the ground or knees on the ground, hands and knees, not in a Johnny jump up, not in a one of those walkers that they sit in and they don't even learn how to walk, they learn how to push
Yeah.
away. And it's tragic that parents don't let their kids do that. Get on the floor, push themselves up, develop their arm strength, crawling, develop that cross crawl pattern. But here's what happens: we stick them in a car seat and we give them a screen. The left side of the brain is what is looking at screens, and it's for small muscle movement,
Wow.
fingers.
Wow.
The right side of the brain is for large muscle movement, perception, living in the world, reading facial expressions, social rules. We're learning all that, not the left side of the brain. The little kid doesn't have to know how to read or learn math. And parents will say, "Oh, my Johnny was so smart. He's doing math problems and reading chapter books at 4." One of the worst possible things you could do to a child because they don't learn how to live in the world, read facial expressions, develop their big muscles, and now they're analytical. What did I just
Hmm.
describe?
Hmm.
I described a child with ADHD.
Wow.
Really smart with math, maybe 4 years ahead in the fourth grade. They're doing math at a 14-year-old, but socially and emotionally comes from the right side of the brain. They're acting like a 6-year-old emotionally, can't pay attention, hyperactive, don't know how to get along with people, very poor in social rules and reasoning. And these are kids that are in, elementary school now. It's tragic.
Yeah.
And a lot of it happened because the left side of the brain isn't very active until about 2 years old. But you give a little infant or somebody who's old enough to stare at that screen, it activates the left side of the brain. The right side of the brain gets left behind.
Yeah. Hmm. I've been thinking, when I was going school myself, I don't remember, there was so much ADHD,
No.
autism. all this kind of stuff. Where does it come from? All of a sudden, every other child has got ADHD or autism or, extreme stuff. I'm not
Yeah, and
sure.
I'm going to say some things that are to some pretty controversial.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
care.
We don't
I,
care.
I'm a
Speak the
truth
truth.
seeker and I've been following this for more than 30 years.
Mm,
And here's part of the problem. For some reason, many pediatricians in the world have been indoctrinated into regularly injecting poisons
right,
into our kids.
right.
Now, people sometimes say, well, if that were true, then everybody would have autism or ADHD. No, every child does not respond the same. If they have
That's
genetic
correct.
variants that don't allow them or facilitate detox, they can't detox from the aluminum or the mercury or the polysorbate 80 or on and on and on. They can't detox from that. And then those are the ones that go south. They have problems. And so a lot of that now, and there have been studies done. So I'm going to give you some things to back it up.
Right.
There's a huge study that was done on vaccinated and non-vaccinated. ADHD, autism didn't exist. There was zero in the unvaccinated kids. And the same is true with chronic diseases and allergies and juvenile diabetes, all of these things, and neurological problems, and like some really serious problems, including death. And
Yeah,
so,
my a friend of mine, uh, son is a young little boy. He's only 5, 6 months, and she refuses to give him the vaccine because she wants to know exactly what's in the vaccine before she agrees
smart
for
mom.
them to, yeah. And the doctors told her, well, if you refuse, then the government, well, social services will be on your case. I'm not sure what's going on.
Talk about collusion.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're going to force you to get these things, kind of like COVID.
yeah,
We're going to force you. And unfortunately, millions of people have died because of that COVID shot. And the evidence is coming out.
yeah,
It's going to prove true, and then it'll still take a lot of people to actually believe it or even to hear about it, depending on where they get their news. And so it's kind of sad that Big Pharma has captured politicians, um, TV stations. Every other or 3 out of 4 advertisements are for drugs. Do you know why they advertise drugs on TV stations? It's
mhm,
not it's not so more people will go into their doctor and say, "Hey, I want this and this drug." It's so that they can control what is said on that station, because when most of your money comes from drug advertising, you're not going to you're not going to talk against that industry. That's why they do it. And so here they have all of the TV and a lot of the radio stations captured by paying all this money to their advertising. It's like paying a politician to come and give a speech and pay
yeah,
him $500,000 to give a speech. It wasn't for the speech, was it?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I visit America a few times, and yeah, the advertisement of taking this drug for this, and then one drug for if you're pregnant. There's so many advertisements
Oh my gosh, yeah.
on American TVs. Yeah,
But there's
it's
always nice music playing
yeah, calming one.
as somebody just dances through the flowers in the meadow. And if you experience homicidal or suicidal thoughts when it's actually for depression or something else, go see the person who told you to take this stuff, and they'll give you yet another one. I mean, it's just crazy.
It is, yeah, it is. Kate, do you have another question you would like to ask Dr.
Yeah,
Harmon?
I have a question regarding the right and left brain activity and balance. What would be your suggestions, Dr. Harmon, what someone can or could do on daily basis in order to keep the both brain sides in balance?
Well, as a parent, don't worry about the left side of the brain at all. That will turn on at about 2 years old, and they'll get really inquisitive. Then they go through the why, why, why. Everything's why. Well, that's because the left side of the brain turned on and they want to know why now. Prior to
Terrible
that,
twos. They say that's the terrible twos.
yeah, because the then they have their own ideas about stuff.
Right.
Whereas before that, they're taking everything in. They're learning how to live in the world and developing my core strength, my muscles. So things to do as a parent. I'll start with the things to not do.
Right.
Don't restrain your child. Don't put them in a car seat, or they're called little Johnny jump up. They hang from the door jamb, and then the child is in an upright position. The feet aren't really touching the ground. You're not in gravity, so the muscles that they need to develop to stand up and keep their balance are not getting activated. But so prior to the child being able to walk, this is what parents need to do. Let your child be on the floor.
Yeah.
What they will do, they will learn, they will get arm strength by, first of all, neck strength. They're developing the cervical curve in their neck by tilting it up and looking around. They're on the floor, so their head is up. They're developing that curvature. And then they start to get some arm strength and they push themselves up like this, developing even more. And then their head is up at the same time. And then they start to be able to roll over. And then they get up on their hands and knees and they're rocking back and forth at first. But then they start to, it's the word when they, at least here in the States, we call it crawling when they're up on their hands and knees. That's actually creeping.
Yeah.
Crawling is like army crawl, where they're like a lizard.
Hmm.
That is innate. That's a lower function, like a lizard. The arms go up like this, back and forth. They have to do that first. And I tell parents, do not ever try to teach your child how to walk when their core is strong enough and they've been able to pull themselves up on the couch and hold themselves up. They will one day, it's about 12 months and 3 weeks
Yeah.
that they will start walking because now they have the coordination and the core strength to do it, but they did it on their own. If you're not going to be able to unhear this, when you go to the mall, you go shopping, take a look around and watch how people walk. Some people have one arm that doesn't swing. My theory is that's the arm that daddy held when he was teaching me how to walk. And it never got the neurological pattern of cross crawl, right arm, left leg, right arm, like this. And so that arm does not even swing when they walk. So,
Got it. Yeah.
parents, don't try to get your child to walk. They'll walk when they're ready. And before 12 months and 3 weeks is too early. There are bad things that can happen if they're too early, and if they're too late, there are some issues. And sometimes it has to do with the retention of these primitive reflexes that uh, are supposed to get dominated by the higher brain,
Hmm.
and then they don't. It's not like they disappear, but they're silent
Yeah.
when, if proper brain develop happens. If proper brain doesn't develop, then kids will retain those primitive reflexes And like the startle response, you know how if there's a loud noise, an infant will tense up and freeze.
Yeah.
Like that's a protective mechanism when they're scared. Much like I compare it to this. If you're a quarterback, would you rather be with the ball like this and all open when you get hit in the back by the 380-pound lineman? Or would you rather do this and protect yourself?
Yeah.
Well, the baby,
Second.
all of the muscles tighten up in case somebody's dropping them or something's happening. So those reflexes, if that one persists, the person will have bad anxiety and they might even have such a startle response. Somebody just makes a loud noise, they'll scream, throw their arms up. That's a primitive reflex that needs to be taken care of
Yeah.
because that can lead to other things as well as they age.
Hmm. That's good information. I'm blown away by the information. Definitely with a toddler. It's very important. How how would someone overcome an obstacle in the mind? You know, I know we touched on it earlier regarding what is real and what isn't real. Um, yeah, so I would like to know for the viewers if they had like a trauma or what's the best way. I think Kai touched on it a little bit of how to keep the balance levels. I know we're going
You have to look
into
at it like there are psychogenic problems and then there are neurogenic.
okay,
Psychogenic would be, a parent tells their child, you're never going to amount to anything. You're a little brat. This is my whatever. That is psychogenic.
psychogenic. Okay.
It's it's a memory, it's a response to a memory, it's something that was programmed into me by others.
Mm-hmm.
Neurogenic would be my beta waves are too overpowered in this part of the brain and it's causing me to have OCD or anger. So with those neurogenic problems, neurofeedback is very beneficial. Excuse me, and that's what I used to do in my practice is neurofeedback. And I first started doing those with they're called operant conditioning, where it trains the brain to do the right pattern. Then another system came along years ago in the last 5 years of my career. This is the type we did. So the operant conditioning, you had sensors on the scalp,
Yeah.
and according to the brain map that was done, we needed to reduce an overactive part of the brain here, encourage or increase activity in this part of the brain. So the brain map knows that, and it's encouraging the brain to do the right thing. Well, how does that
Yeah.
happen? Well,
Mm-hmm.
the person would be watching a movie and they'd have specialized pulsing glasses on with little lights in the four quadrants of the visual field. And depending on what we wanted to accomplish, those would pulse at certain rates in timing. And then the brain would reward the person by letting them see the video and hear the audio on a movie they're watching when it got into the right pattern. And then it would deprive it. The screen and the sound would be full volume or visual experience doing the right pattern, but then the whole thing would dim temporarily when it went into the wrong pattern. So
Mm-hmm.
over a very long period of time, then that brain would be trained out of the faulty pattern.
I
So
got
then
you.
along
Yeah.
came what's called iasis, and it's microcurrent neurofeedback. And instead of training the brain, it sends in 3 trillionths of the watt of delta waves into the brain and untrains it from the faulty pattern. So it's much quicker. So I switched to that one in the last 5 years of my practice. And people, we all have brains, and I compare it to, you call up the tech guy and you go, my software's doing this and that and this, and they say, well, why don't you just reboot it first? And you go, wait a second, that's what I'm going to do from now on. The first thing, it's kind of similar, but it's not turning the brain totally off, right? It's
Right.
just untraining the brain from faulty patterns so then it can go into a more normal pattern. And I go back to what I talked about first, electrical activity. You either got the right amount, too much, or not enough. Where there's
Hmm.
too much or not enough, that's when the brain starts to dysfunction and go outside of the normal range.
Hmm. Okay. Kate, you got a question?
Yes, I have a question that I think nowadays majority of people have their brains overactive, overstimulated, and that relates to Andrew's question earlier that what can people do or how they can stop overthinking, which can lead also sleeping problems. So, what would be some lifestyle choices? Um, what would help to stabilize and you know uh, bring your brain into the coherence and into balance?
Well, that's a little bit more difficult task, and that's why microcurrent neurofeedback exists, because usually people are kind of at their wits' end. They've tried so many different things. They've tried supplements, tried herbs, sometimes drugs
Yeah.
to try to quiet their brain. So there are different things that they can do, but it takes a lot of effort, like practicing mindfulness,
Hmm.
helping to quiet the default mode network that comes on every time I'm just sitting here doing nothing. My brain starts to ruminate about these different things. Rumination is one thing, but default mode network, and then everything in there happens to be negative on that person. So mindfulness, meditation,
Meditation, yeah.
focusing on and counting and the blessings that you have.
Seeing the beauty.
Gratitude,
Yeah.
practicing gratitude. It's you can't have all of those negative thoughts when you're thinking about all of the things you're thankful for. And sometimes it's very difficult for people to do that if they're standing in front of a mirror and doing affirmations. I'm beautiful, I'm
Yeah.
loved,
That's
I'm
right.
successful, and the conscious mind is going, no, you're not, no, you're not, no, you're not, no, you're not. So sometimes it's helpful for those people to kind of go around that a little bit, and instead of making conscious statements about themselves, I'm when they're very negative and they're saying, I'm a really positive person. And let's say that they don't have much money. I'm wealthy.
Yeah.
And then the conscious mind says, no, you're not. So instead of doing that, um, I have people do what are called affirmations. And those are questions one asks oneself where the answer to the question is what you want.
Hmm.
It's perfect because we came into that part which I also wanted to talk about. I can tell about my personal experience. I did learn it from you, Dr. Harmon. I think it was like almost 3 years ago. Uh, our formations and these questions and yes, it was a life changing. So maybe
Absolutely.
maybe
For me as
maybe
well.
we can talk about it a bit
Yeah.
deeper.
Yeah. So that would be instead of saying, um, somebody's thinking about how their husband treats them or their boss or something. Let's take a husband. Instead of focusing and ruminating on feeling unloved, which may or may not be true, but sometimes the way someone expresses love is not how that other person needs to feel it, and so they feel unloved. And so one of those afformations, and they call them afformations because in order to firm something, you have to form it first. So
Right.
afformations.
Affirmation.
A good thing for that woman to say would be, why does my husband love me so much? It's not judgment, it's not making a statement, but I teach people, train yourself when you're just walking through your house. Why do I love my spouse so much? Why does my spouse love me so much? Why am I so rapidly becoming financially stable? Why
Yeah.
do so many people like me? And just whatever the question is, and then the subconscious mind starts to get you what you just asked a question about because it wants to answer questions for you.
Yes. Correct. Yeah. That's great.
Whereas, and the subconscious mind doesn't understand conscious statements. It
Mm.
understands questions and then it's your ally. It's your little helper. I'm going to get you what you think about and ask about and feel about, not necessarily what you just think about.
Positive or negative, it will get it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I get that. I get that. What about someone that's not on any medications? However, they have memory fog. How can they treat, you know, get out of that state? One I do know is that they gotta not say they have memory fog, because some people, they will say, yeah, I got memory fog, and so yeah, exactly what we just said. Now the conscious mind is bringing you what you wanted. How would they retrain their mind? Because years ago, Dr. Harmon, I used to say, I can't remember your name. You told me your name 2 minutes ago, and then I would say, sorry, I can't remember your name. I'm really bad at names. So I became very bad. So I had to retrain my mind. So when someone tells me their name, I got it straight away.
Yeah, and sometimes they have to start with having associations.
Hmm.
Like your name is Tom, and I see Tom has red shoes,
Yeah,
and you could say Red Shoe Tom.
yeah,
Or they're they have a dog with them, you know,
yeah,
Tom and dog. Do
yeah.
something that associates it with a color that they're wearing or some other characteristic about them.
Hmm.
Because I mean, that is a difficult thing for a lot of people is remembering names. Yes, that comes from a certain part of the brain, and that might be a little slow. So just remember things that wire together, fire together.
Right.
And so, excuse me, fire together, wire together. I misspoke.
Hmm.
That is true for the default mode network. You can rewire that, those negative things. And briefly, this is how one can do that. Write down one thing that your brain defaults to. What is that? Let's say that I have a sense of abandonment, or I have a sense of repulsion from everybody. I don't know why. I know that people feel repulsed, so or whatever it is, address it,
Hmm.
write it down, and then write down what is the opposite of that. I feel loved and accepted by all. Write that out 10 times at least.
Yeah.
Speak it out loud, read it silently, go through that and rehearse that what you're going to replace that with. It takes a
Mhm.
lot of effort. It's not a one and done, but someone can, I say, someone can reprogram or put new files with really big tabs in that default mode network file cabinet so that when you're doing nothing, instead of going to the default, which is negative, and your dad said you're not going to amount to anything, and your mom said you're a little rug, whatever it is, if you have bigger, more noticeable positive tabs, it's going to open up that file.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of effort and conscious as well as subconscious practice in order to make changes. There's no automatic hook an electrode up to your scalp and change those the
Yeah.
way that has wired and fired as part of that subconscious or default mode.
So it's more of a changing the negative into a positive.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like
So
we form negative memories, we can form positive ones.
yeah. And the
And
brain
it's
doesn't
through,
know right from wrong. Is that correct? Would you say so?
yeah, and that is a deeper thing from like early on in a child's life. Children can get programmed like this is acceptable to hate this ethnic group or
Yeah.
to it's acceptable to kill those people because they live on the other side of Russia
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
Yes.
It, those those become part of a whole cultural, the cultural thought when it's there and now it's hardwired.
Hmm.
It's not just this, floating thought somewhere. Those neurons have wired and fired together. That is a difficult thing to do, to change. It takes a really long time, but it can be. We can be
Yeah.
unprogrammed, but it's probably
So
more difficult than being programmed
yes.
to undo that because sometimes we don't even know what the opposite of this thought would be. And so, how could I do that? The
So
same is true
it's
for
yeah.
walking and thinking. The child's brain, the right side of the brain turns off. Now the left side of the brain takes over. It's really, really difficult to undo that.
So self-development is a good thing to study oneself. Would you say that's a good way of training, retraining your mind?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Seminars, how to do this,
Hmm.
how to, there are a lot of people talking about the mind
Yeah.
and talking about all of the negative self-talk and small thinking that we were taught as a child. Sit down, do your work. The bell rings, I go home. I can turn my brain off now. You know,
Playtime.
what's that?
I said playtime once you finish school.
Yeah, let's get out of here,
Hmm.
man.
Yeah. You know,
And unfortunately, it's that way. It would be better off for, kindergarten, first, second grade, spend more time outside developing their big muscles with an obstacle course and learning how to get along with their classmates than it would to sit down and study math at that
yeah,
age.
the system doesn't teach us when we're young, when we're in school, anything to do with the mind. They don't teach you anything whatsoever.
No,
And
no,
if
they don't
we,
even teach us how to balance a checkbook for heaven's sakes.
yeah,
And then we wonder why people don't know what to do with money or don't even
yeah,
know that process
yeah.
of getting it, acquiring. That also has a lot to do with the mindset.
Hmm. Would you
Some
say,
people have,
mm, would you say
go ahead.
also a good way of uh, doing a life story? So say like you was 35 years old, you done a life story from the age of 2, you can remember all the way to 35. That's a good way of seeing whatever you writ down, once you've got it all on paper, you then see some of the things that you thought was correct is totally rubbish.
Yeah, and there are lots of different. Some of the things I've learned over the years is going back on your timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody gets out of childhood unscathed. We have some emotional trauma,
Mm.
either feeling inadequate, not really knowing how to program myself for success, not really understanding money. We just heard, money, those people, look at them. Wouldn't it be nice if, whatever, or those are evil people, they're
Yeah,
evil rich people,
yeah.
or whatever it is, those things are usually generational.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The parents were poor, the grandparents were poor, just scraping by, and then the parents, same for the most part, and then this child is born in a totally different time period, and they have this block that I can't get past that, even though they never really think about it. There's this idea about money that is preventing them from having abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Good
one
subject.
thing is
Yeah.
really good to do is no judgment, is why does abundance follow me everywhere I go? Weren't making a false conscious statement, hoping, why does abundance follow me everywhere I go?
Positive. Yeah.
Great things are going to happen today.
Positive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So things that fire together, wire together.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm thinking positive thoughts walking around my house, why do my kids love me so much? Why does my spouse love me? Why am I so, this, that, and that?
The world is
Now,
beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah.
you basically design your life by asking questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
And then your mind, and we've all experienced it, when we really believe we're going to get something, then all of a sudden it appears from somewhere. That's another topic for probably 100 different Zooms.
Yeah.
But speaking something is very powerful. Words can be curses for good or bad.
Yeah.
And I use the
Mm-hmm.
example of the high school girl getting ready to go to the dance, got her best dress, gets her hair permed, goes to the dance, and the prettiest girl in the school said, "What'd you wear that ugly thing for? By the way, you look fat in it." That is a curse unless that girl gets deprogrammed,
Confidence. Yeah.
unprogrammed from
Yeah.
those words. That's a curse.
Yep.
If people believe in the Bible, the earth was created with words. Words are powerful, they're frequency. So speak positive things onto your kids. Never joke about them. Those words are still perceived by that child's subconscious as a rugrat, a brat, or loser, or whatever it is. Let those all be positive, positive words that can grow, so those can grow in that child's mind.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm gonna let you go. I know you're a very, very busy man. I know you, Dr. Harmon, and we've touched on so many different subjects. I'm telling you, your brain is like, wow. You got so much knowledge, so much knowledge. So we
Well,
really
there's
do.
there are a lot of topics we touch on. If somebody has more time,
Yeah.
it's on root cause holistic health.
That's what I was about to say. I was about to say, if you want to know any more to do with Dr. Harmon, I'm gonna put it on YouTube anyway, and I'm gonna put your details there
Great.
so they can definitely get hold of you because this man's knowledge is out here. So
Oh, thank you.
get to know Dr. Harmon, and we appreciate you. We thank you for coming on to this pod, all about the mind, and we're gonna stop the recordings now. Thank you.